Hey, everybody, this is Jonathan Ogden, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
Hey, Bruin fans, this is David Singleton, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show. Go Bruins.
Hey, this is Wayne Cook, and you're listening to What's Bruin Show.
Hey, guys, it's Chris Johnson, UCLA national champion. I need y'all to listen to the What's Bruin Show. These dudes are off the hook.
This is Maurice Jones-Drew, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
You're listening to the What's Bruin Show, part of the What's Bruin Show network, with your hosts, Jake Berryfield and Mike Regalado, and occasionally some friends, talking all things UCLA sports. And now, it's time for the What's Bruin Show.
Well, hello, and welcome to What's Bruin. I'm your host, Jake Berryfield, and I'm currently walking around the block by the historic Broadbent Hotel in Long Beach as I was in the car listening to the end of UCLA's historic upset over top 10 Penn State, 42-37. Went right down to the wire. It was something. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like it or heard anything like it. I was ecstatic for the UCLA players and for the UCLA broadcast team and our friend Wayne Cook, who I know is having the time of his life right now doing these interviews. This is something that just... I was tweeting on the show Twitter account, Inconceivable, Wallace Scott from Princess Bride. That's what this was. It was inconceivable in every way, shape, or form. No one has any interest in any sort of sport would have predicted this upset, and that's what makes it so sweet and so unbelievable and so incredible, and instantly changes the show that was rebranded into Sometimes It's Hard to Be a Bruin into the What's Bruin Show. I mean, that's what we all needed, right? I mean, this team is going to kill me. This is I'm down in Long Beach because I'm running a half marathon tomorrow, and I was supposed to come down here and get my bib and for the race and be all cash and all that stuff and enjoy a nice Saturday afternoon and barely paid attention to UCLA versus Penn State. I actually gave my tickets away to one of our dear friends, the guy I'm running the race with, and his wife, his son, who's a UCLA student, was sitting in my seats, and he said it was the best game he's ever been to. Obviously, what does he know? He's 18-year-old kid. Yeah, know nothing. But this is supposed to be a lazy Saturday afternoon for your boy, and everything's happening at once, including the greatest upset in UCLA football history. I mean, I can't remember a better one than this. This beats 13-9 just because I've never seen a team that had, you just have to talk about it like this. This was the worst start of a football season in school history, and now they just completed the biggest upset in school history. They started 0-4. They lost their coach. They fired their coach. They lost their offensive coordinator. They lost their defensive coordinator. Jerry Neuheisel, forever, a Bruin legend hero, no matter what. There's nobody more Bruin than Jerry freaking Neuheisel. I was riding in the car with my wife, Sarah, down to Long Beach right now, and she doesn't care. She gives absolutely no Fs about UCLA football or anything UCLA. But I said, do you remember when we went to Texas and we saw that guy throw that touchdown? And we were all crazy about that. Remember how much fun that was? It's like, yeah. I said, well, this is the first time this guy has called plays in a game. And lightning strikes again. It's unbelievable, unfathomable, inconceivable. If I have my buttons right now, just do Wallace on. Inconceivable, over and over and over and over again. But I'm not going to stick with this too long because I want to talk to Mike about it on the main show. But there are just some things that I jotted down as we went through the first half that I want to talk about. And then, oh my gosh, I'm walking down the sidewalk and there's just like a dead mouse on somebody's doorstep. That's weird. But might have to take a picture of that. But just a few things I wanted to really get. This dead mouse could be Penn State. It's not the famous DJ though. Anyways, a few things I wanted to that we need to point to that made this absolutely inconceivable UCLA victory possible. And then I'm hoping that you guys are calling the hotline. Forgot to set it at the top of the show. 805-399 for WBS, second reign of Troy. And by the way, even reign of Troy. And I'll quote text from Michael and Alicia, my dear friends. They say, Jake, I'm happy that UCLA won. And she does say it, and we'll play that drop too. And then she said, this is Penguin, I have never, ever, ever wanted UCLA to win more than I want them to win today. And that was when they were up 10-0. That was well before it seemed like it was even possible there was any chance of that. But they ended up doing it. And we'll just sit here and just be flabbergasted by it. It's wonderful. Of course, my phone's getting blown up over and over again. Everybody I know that knows me, I got like 42 texts on my thing. But anyways, call the hotline, and I'll try to attach those onto the show that I'm going to do before we go to our pre-run dinner tonight, and then I'll be running in the morning. But call the hotline, and I'm sure all of you did. I'm going to tweet out to call the hotline right now while I'm talking, but I don't know. I'm almost without words, but talking about going into the game and how whatever the formula was that it was going to take for them to get an actual victory over Penn State, who was coming off of a very deflating and we thought demoralizing loss to Oregon. But we also thought that's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, now they really have no chance because they're going to come out and just want to mash the Bruins into tiny little bits. But one of the things that had to happen in any circumstance for the Bruins to be competitive in this game, and it happened in spades, was the Bruins just had to, and you can, if I could play the drop, I would. Maybe I'll try to plug it in later, but let it all hang out. You remember that drop I was playing last year? You just let it all hang out, man, and do the guitar riff right there. That was something that had to happen. These Bruins, 0-4, circumstances against them, people hating on them, including us. I mean, we changed the name of our show. Sometimes it is hard to be a Bruin. Dave, our the wonderful logo man of the What's Bruin Show from the 909, sent me 2 more graphics for Sometimes It's Hard to Be a Bruin just this week, and I was like very thankful for those. But it's like the Bruins themselves, these players, they don't care about us, the fans. They just care about their team, and they had to galvanize themselves around something, and they had to go out there and not give a fuck and play really, really hard. And that's what every guy on this damn team did the whole dang game. And it's inspiring, it's wonderful, and it's like, why the hell didn't this happen before? But who the fuck cares? They just beat the top 10 team, and who knows what they'll do after this, but as of right now, it doesn't matter. You have this one game, this one time, and they went out and they fucking did it. And that's what we should be proud of, and proud of this effort. And sometimes it is hard to be a Bruin, but not fucking right now. Beat the Nittany Lions, which they did, and hot damn, this was really, really fun. I'm trying to pull up my pictures to tweet out the thing, to tell people to call the thing. Oh, there it is. No, that's not right. Oh, it's right here somewhere. But anywho, just so much fun, right? And this is one of those things where they had to let it all hang out and be galvanized and understand that there was going to be more people in the stadium possibly rooting for Penn State than there was for them. And there were some Bruin fans there, but it wasn't, it wasn't one of those games like it was back 20 years ago when we went and we would beat Penn State, or we beat, what were the games? Like all those SEC teams. The win over Alabama, I'm thinking of. The win over Ohio State back in the early 2000s. Like, this was something completely different. These players had to galvanize themselves without having the crowd to pump them up running onto the Rose Bowl. It was nothing but negatives. Like, it was as bad as it could be. We talked about the low point of UCLA football. And now I'm walking down an alley and there's a couple dudes doing some weird photo shoot. It's Long Beach is weird, guys. I've been down here a lot lately, but it's weird. But these guys had to, this wasn't going to happen on its own. These players and these coaches had to manufacture this somehow. And it's so impressive that they manufactured this effort the way that they did, because it's not like Penn State tripped all over themselves, had 17 fumbles, threw 10 interceptions, completely shot themselves in the foot. The Bruins took this game from them first. Like, this game started and UCLA smacked Penn State right in the face, stole their chain, 10-0, bam. Tim Skipper and whoever else is involved with special teams decisions, the idea to steal a possession with the onside kick, get your extra 3 points, now you're up 10-0 before Penn State even sees the ball. That's a baller move, bro. I mean, that's just absolutely it. That's what you want. That's the stuff that, like, the Dan Lanning stuff that Woods always talks about. But that's the kind of thing in a game that you're expected to lose by 25 points that you should give no Fs. Sorry to keep going back to the same phrases, but that's the type of stuff that if you have the requisite passion and effort and skill to compete in this game, well, that's the kind of stuff that's going to give you the edge to get over the top. And they absolutely did it this time. There's a guy walking down the street with a ghetto blaster in a little backpack. It's crazy. I don't know. Anywho, that set the tone for the game, but it could have very easily been any one of these games we see all the goddamn time where the other team gets up, the underdog gets up, and then quickly the favorite gets off the mat and just puts it right to them, right? There was no reason to expect the Bruins to be able to sustain the effort that they had in this game for the entire length of the game like they did, even with a near disastrous third quarter that started wonderfully but ended up having some real problems with the block punt and all that stuff, and Penn State scoring 15, 16 points. Sorry, I'm walking around, I don't have it right in front of me, but scoring a bunch of points right in a couple minutes to make it a one-possession game. So, just look back at UCLA's games this year. They were down big to UNLV, and they kind of come storming back in the second half a little bit, but it just falls flat because they just don't have it. The game against New Mexico. How in the world does this team play like they do against New Mexico and then come out and play like they do against Penn State? It's just an insane thing. But we all witnessed it. But that's the thing. They had to do this for an entire game. And you could talk about how they dominated the first quarter, dominated possession. I think almost to the end of the game, Penn State only had possession of the ball 20, 21 minutes. If you have, going back to what we're talking about, this game was going nowhere if the Bruins weren't determined and ready to play and able to give their best performance with the best of their skills just to start the game, let alone what plays they call or what defense they call or whatever. First, they had to have that, the belief, the I don't give a fuck, the letting it all hang out. And they had that. They did let it all hang out. And then after that, then the coaching in this game was additive. The decision to kick the onside kick and steal possession was additive. All of the, even though all the calls didn't work out, going for it constantly and trying to take the game was additive. Jerry's offensive game plan, whoever helped him design that, whether that was all him, whatever it was, the plan they go into the game with, running those dives up the middle of the field with Nico and with the running backs, who all ran very hard and played very well, but schematically they were put in a position of advantage over and over again in the first half. And even though Penn State figured it out in the second half a little bit, they still were taking yards from Penn State instead of Penn State kind of giving to them, right? The Bruins were always charging forward. They were always running as hard as they possibly could, given their best effort. So, going back to it, let it all hang out. And I'm sorry I'm rambling, but this is fun. Letting it all hang out. The coaching preparation. The actual coaching calls in the game. There was a couple things that happened at the end of the game that we can quibble about, but it all worked out in the end. And the things that happened at the beginning of the game and through the middle of the game actually set up a chance for them to have that victory at the end. But that's all a part of it. And then they just had to get out there and really hang on against the Penn State team that, oh my God, there's like a dragster pumping music. It's got purple wheels. I don't know, it was weird. But it all had to come together, and even then still they had to knuckle it out to the very end. And they did. So we can be happy. Jerry Neuheisel and the way he called this game and the way they drew up this offense. And by the way, remember, I watched part of it on the radio. I listened to part of it on the radio. I watched part of it. I watched the majority of the first half and the third quarter. And then it was all radio time for me. But I was tweeting about it at the half, thinking about the wrinkles that they came into the game with, simplified, but still getting back to stuff that works. I can't emphasize highly enough that this shit don't work if Neuheisel is not good at the sequencing of the play calling, right? And so some guys got it and some guys don't. And I guess maybe we can conclude that Sunseri and certainly Bieniemy don't got it. They just don't got it. They didn't have it, and they're gone. But maybe Neuheisel does. And that's something to put a little pin in to see how we go forward for the rest of the season. We thought there was absolutely no stakes for the season other than finding out which dudes could hang out and maybe play for the Bruins next year, which coaches could hang out and play for the Bruins next year. But now, all that's completely off the table. You have this sort of game and this sort of effort. It's like, well, now we know you can do it. So I guess you can do it again. If you could beat that opponent, well, then theoretically you could beat every opponent on your schedule. Not that we're getting ahead of ourselves, right? This is still looking like a season that is going to be woefully short on the wins in the wins and losses column. But whereas before it was an impossibility, whereas before it seemed like 0-12 was the most likely scenario, well, now, fuck it, that's gone. They got one. Why can't they get 2, 3, 4? Who the fuck knows? They can now beat any of the opponent that's on their schedule if they play like they did today. And they call the game like they did today. And that goes back to the coaches and it goes back to the players. And I talk about just at the end of the half, it was such a great game plan, calling the game, stealing the possessions, and then the defense being out there. And even though they gave up some points and yards, they weren't giving up anything fast. And that changed in the third quarter a little bit, with the pump block and the return and all that stuff like that. But that's the recipe they needed to, once you had the coaching and you had the player effort, to stay in the game and give yourself a chance to win the game. And I was worried that in the second half they were just going to kind of circle the wagons and try to hold on. And I think if they would have done that, I think Penn State would have overtaken them and kicked their butts by the end of the day. But they didn't. And even when, and this is probably what I'm most proud of as far as this team goes in this particular effort, even when things went horribly awry in the third quarter, and now it's a one-score game, and Penn State's got the ball, and they blow up to stop them. And then the Bruins offense keeps putting up more and more and more points. They put up how many damn points in this game? It's unbelievable. 42 points. Have they even scored 42 points combined the rest of the season? Probably, but not by much. So I'm in nirvana right now, right? This is just an unbelievable effort feeling game that we can all enjoy together. And look, even if this is just a one-off, a singular event, this is going to be one of those, like 13-9, that we can all just be like, wow, remember when those guys did that? And I think right now, because I really want my buttons to be able to say what a baller all these guys are, Nico and Jet and all the running backs and the wide receivers, Quasi, oh my God, what a game by Quasi. Flores had some moments. Tito Atamalala had a great touchdown. And then on the defense, Busick and a lot of other guys stepping up and having their moments. But honestly, the game ball, such a baller. And we wanted to see this performance was Nico, but it was Nico and his cast and crew. It wasn't Nico putting everything on his shoulders and doing it himself. It wasn't. And I'll guarantee you he'd tell you that too. This was a full team effort, and he was the one who was able to shine the most and the brightest, but it wasn't just him. And that's what makes this such a sweet victory for these Bruins. And getting back to the last point I think I want to make before I try to plug in your phone calls or whatever that I'm going to do with this. And that's just, I was so depressed about this team because there were so many players on this team that I really actually liked quite a bit. Starting with the guys that came down from Cal. Mikey Matthews, Mateen Bagani, and Jet. I watched them last year or the year before, when they happened to transfer. And I was very excited to see them in our shade of blue and gold. Very excited. And I wanted to see them shine. And this became a season where nobody was shining, right? It was a season where there was really no bright spots to be taken at all. And it was going to be a long crawl to the end of the season and a coaching hire and yada, yada, yada. And just to have this game, at least, where these guys all showed out and looked good, and have this game, at least, where the defense, which was not, dominating, but they had their moments, which is what I think we thought they could be before the season started. We didn't think they were going to be as good as last year because of everything they lost. But we thought they had some guys that could make some plays. And guess what? Today, they had some guys that made some plays. They made enough plays to make it. We thought this was going to be a team that the offense was going to be on fire and the defense would make enough stops to make them competitive in these games. And it absolutely had not played out like that. They literally had a worse offense than last year, which we thought, going back to Wallace Shawn, inconceivable. But turns out, at least in this game, they figured it out. And it was a hell of a time to figure it out, right? So I'm really just so pleased as punch, ecstatic for these players. Nico gets his signature win, and no matter how it goes to the Bruins, and God knows how it'll go with the Bruins going forward, that dude can point to all those people across the country, at least for a week, and give them double middle fingers, F y'all, for all the really ridiculous criticism, I think, in a lot of ways that he suffered. And whatever, some of it was earned maybe, but not all of it. And I thought he was treated pretty unfairly. And you can agree or disagree. And then for all these other guys, like I said, Quasi Gilmer too, I want to mention him. That's a guy that I have a cool picture of him and my son Malcolm shaking hands at, or standing next to each other, one of the Rose Bowl events. And he's always been a favorite of mine as a Bruin. And I wanted to have him have some more shine. And this season had been set up with the 0-4 start to where no one's getting any more shine at all. But that's changed now. As far as going forward, who knows what the record's going to be? And just my advice to any Bruin fan right now is, who the hell cares? Don't worry about the coaching search. Don't worry about who the coaches are going to be. Don't worry about what the options are, at least for, 5 or 6 days. Just don't. Put it out of your mind. Just enjoy this. These things don't happen very often. Games like this don't happen a lot. The young man who sat in my seats at the Rose Bowl, I texted him halfway through the game. I said, look, whether they win or lose, these games don't come along too often, so savor the experience of it, because it's got to be fun, even there without a big crowd. And he texted me back and said, yeah, this is the best game he's ever been to, like I said before. But don't care about the coaching search right now. Don't care about any of that right now. Just enjoy this victory for at least for a few days and bask in it and listen to all the dumb podcasts and get frustrated when they give no credit to the Bruins and put all the blame on Penn State. This is not a game that Penn State fumbled away in the way that teams fumble games away. This is the game that the Bruins played better than them and took it to them. And was Penn State a part of that? Sure, probably. But it wasn't just Penn State choking. Absolutely not. Just watch that fucking game and look at those Bruins flying around like wombats. Not a wombat? Like bats out of hell. There we go. And just taking it to those Nittany Lions. That's not a game that Penn State just farted away. The Bruins took that goddamn game from them. And don't forget it. But who knows what this means for the coaching search, just to put a button on it. And like I said, don't think about it for a week or two. All I will say in regards to what does this mean for Tim Skipper and his application, what does this mean for Jerry Neuheisel and his application? Well, it's a very good first check mark for Jerry, and it's a pretty darn good 1-1 record for Tim Skipper. I think we'll take that for sure. But you can't even begin to consider anybody that's associated with UCLA coaching right now for any future UCLA job until there is some sustained success. So that means Tell me where we're at 4 or 5 games from now. And if it looks more like today than it does, the last 4 or 5 Saturdays, then now we can talk. But until that happens, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to consider it. I don't want to talk about the UCLA coaching search. There's a committee for that. Let them worry about it. And I just want to enjoy what today was and then see how it goes next week, and we'll go from there. But that's where I'll leave it. Sustained success could make it possible to consider anything for the coaching vacancy at UCLA. But not even this one ginormous, wonderful victory is enough to, put someone in the running for anything at this point. And I'll make a slight amendment to that and just say, as far as Jerry Neuhausel goes, you can make him whatever you want. Make him the quarterback coach, make him the offensive coordinator, make him the head coach, make him the dean of students, make him the freaking, give him Jarmon job. I don't care. Jerry can do no wrong ever in the history, in our school history, and just do whatever you want to make that guy happy. But, everything else I just said stands. So I am either going to post this quickly and get it out there, and then we'll listen to all of your wonderful calls. I think that's what I'm going to do because, to be honest with you, my lovely wife Sarah is sitting in the historic Broadbent Hotel right now, I think waiting to get a glass of wine or something in her hands. And we have a dinner meeting, a pre-run meeting, dinner, carb load in like 45 minutes. So I'm probably just going to post this, and then we'll play the calls on Saturday. I'm not promising that sometimes it's hard to be a Bruin. The show won't return at some point this season because we just don't know. We don't know how the rest of the season is going to go. But at least for a week, the What's Bruin show is back on the air, and we are enjoying and basking and soaking in the wonderful, wonderful thing that was UCLA 42, Penn State 37. That was a weird safety at the end. Still kind of white knuckle in it, but it worked out. UCLA 42, I repeat, Penn State 37. Bruins are 1-4, but oh, what a one it is. Until I talk to you again on Tuesday, go Bruins.
Good evening.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
That was the What's Bruin show.
Oh my God.
Try us tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's got to be in or out, Mom. In or out. Well, I need the door closed.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Dude, Rob, we play some ball on the West Coast.
The final word is boob.